Oli here, and welcome to my review of Galaxy 4, my first YouTube video of 2020 and the first story of Season 3 of Classic Doctor Who. And this is the 18th story overall, starring William Hartnell as the first Doctor. It's 4 episodes long and is written by William Ems. Galaxy 4 is also the 4th overall missing story of Doctor Who. Episode 3, Airlock, exists as it was found back in 2011 alongside Episode 2 of The Underwater Menace. Lewis Canham made the recon of it, and the BBC made their own recon, which includes the airlock, which recently got recovered in 2011. Not recent, but. And you can actually watch the recon on the special edition of the Aztecs DVD. It is on disc 2, and audio for those missing episodes exists, and the 6-minute clip of episode 1 exists, along with 8mm clips from episode 1. The rest don't have. Okay, so the plot of this story is this. So basically, the plot is the TARDIS lands on this planet. It doesn't have a name, and then the Doctor, Vicky, and Stephen encounter some robot, which Vicky calls them Chumblies, and then they're assumed to be dangerous, and they are saved by a group of warrior women named the Dravins, and their leader Marga, and then it's pretty clear. The Doctor finds out that the planet is going to end up being destroyed, and the appearances no urgent themes. Okay, so my opinion of Galaxy 4, I don't really like the story, to be honest. I get to what put me off with this story later, but there were some things that I quite enjoyed about the story. First off, the set design was really good, even though no telesnaps of the actual story exists, but there are promotional images actually do exist, and they show like the sets of the story. But episode 3 does exist, so you have a glimpse of like what the deserty place the planet is on, and it's actually very nice. And the costuming was good. I'm not really sure about like the Dravin's eyebrows. I think they had dots on them. Yeah, and the acting of the main cast was alright. It was very good, but the writing was off, and the characterizations for some of the characters was a bit off. There was also a moral in this story, which is the basic don't judge by appearances, as the Dravins were very attractive yet strong humanoid women, and of course there's like the scary, horrifying wills. We don't get a glimpse of her until at least episode 2 end, but we don't really I think we only see their face, but in episode 4, or the recon of episode 4, we get to see there was 4 of them. We got to see them fully on it. Only their heads appear, nothing else. So the story makes out that the Reals were the villains, and Rose killed one of the Dravins that Margot was talking about, but it was actually revealed that Margot was actually the one that killed the Dravin and blamed it on the Reals, causing a whole war between them. So pretty much the Dravins were the main antagonists, or mainly Margot the leader. She was a good villain, but she had her faults, and sometimes I don't think she made good decisions in this story. Okay, and then the Chumblies, which Vicky called them, they didn't really have names, but then Vicky said, oh, it has some sort of Chumbly movement, and that's how they started referring to them as Chumblies. And these are actually Peter Capaldi's favorite villains, even though they weren't actually villains in this story. They were pretty cute, but when you have a cuteness overload, it does get pretty annoying and just start getting fed up with it, and that's what pretty much happened to the Chumblies in my opinion. Now let's get to the things that I didn't really like about the story. There's quite a bit. I felt that the plot really dragged, and it was very boring to watch as well, even though it did pick up in some parts, but just pretty much afterwards. The pacing was quite poor. As I said, it's just really, as I mentioned before, it really dragged. It wasn't really becoming any interesting. But of course it did become interesting, but just didn't really pick up from that. Because I was considering the fact that this story was written when Ian and Barbara were still in the TARDIS, and I don't think there were any time for any major overhauls. So I think they gave Steven some of what Barbara was going to say if she appeared in this story, and it didn't really feel like Steven at all. I mean, we don't. Okay, some glimpses of Steven actually did show up in that and like towards the end. But Steven, he's this headstrong leader guy. But in here, he pretty much takes a backseat to the Doctor, or pretty much to the Doctor, and ends up getting captured by the Dravins, and ends up almost getting killed in episode 3. And that's definitely something Barbara would. I can definitely see like the barbarisms in that story. I mean, if Steven was in that situation, he probably would have like at least destroyed the Chombley, even though he didn't know they were bad at the time, and would have gone to find the Doctor and Vicky, who were of the Reals. And also watched the BBC recording of this story, and I was quite surprised at the things they cut off, and I felt as if there were some important bits and pieces that were left out, and I think I read it on Lansing. I think one of them included Vicky spraining her ankle. I think that played a part in the start of the Mythmakers, and the BBC really left that one. I didn't really understand that. So, along with the Dravins, as I mentioned before, they were good villains. Also, Margot, she was a great villain as well, but the actions, I thought that they didn't really think their plans through. I mean, it did come across that they was a bit stupid, to be honest with you, but like they were planning on leaving the planet, stealing the Rose spaceship, and leaving the Doctor, Vicky, and Steven to die, and they just assumed that they were going to stay there. I mean, like, what? do you think they just dropped out of the sky? I don't think they even knew about the TARDIS, to be honest with you, until they actually escaped. So I think she assumed that, oh, we'll just let them die in this planet, and we don't care what happens to them. But even if the Dravins did leave the planet, the Doctor probably would have found Vicky and Steven and just went off in the TARDIS, to be honest. I mean, that probably would have happened if the Dravins did leave that planet. The Doctor, Vicky, and Steven, they don't really do a whole lot in the story. They don't really like contribute to the story. It was just pretty much the Reals and the Dravins, the Doctor, Vicky, and Steven just sticking their nose in, and then eventually leaving the planet. They didn't really do much compared to other stories. But they only contributed like the cliffhanger moments, like when the Doctor found out that the planet is going to be destroyed in a few days' time or something like that. I think even Maureen O'Brien, who plays Vicky, she even complained about her role in the story, and that is what led from her dismissal from the show in the hands of John Wiles, Verity Lambert's replacement. So, the Galaxy 4, I'd give the story a 3 out of 10. It's a very weak and a bad story, but the next story is Mission to the Argument, which is actually better, but it doesn't really feature the Doctor and Steven and Vicky. The story has actually one part and it's missing, but the BBC, the University of East Lancashire, recreated it. I'll probably talk about more on that when I get to that review, so look out for that. Thank you for watching my review, and thank you for watching my reviews up to this point. Leave a comment and tell me what you thought of this story and this review, and please tell me what I could do better. So, this is Oli, see you later.